All right. Much love, peace, power to everybody out here watching, checking this, repping it. I'm just doing this first one here because it's in Australia. We're on NAIDOC week from July 7th to 14th. If you haven't read the title, basically, which is just acknowledging the original custodians of this land. So before I begin my reading, I would like to take a second to do that and for all you all to do that. So you need to realize that to give acknowledgement to the Karana people of the South Australia, Murri people of Queensland, Koori people of New South Wales and Victoria, the Noongar people of Western Australia, and the Yolngu people of the Northern Territory. Now, what I was considering, I was going to read from a book. Now, it is titled Aboriginal Convicts, written by Christine Harmon. So, I'll just start on for a chapter. Day by day, we'll go through this and I'll finish that. Chapter 6 of this book is entitled Driving Out Whitefellows. During the early 1840s, disturbing news about Aboriginal attacks on settlers' stock and properties reached colonists almost daily in New South Wales. Conflict extended across the breadth and the colony. As Alexander Harris wrote on returning to England, the aggressions of the Aborigines along the whole border of civilizations grew worse and worse daily. Along the whole, local outbreaks of violence grew into an entire line of activity, hostile, circumscribing the territory along its whole boundary. Harris's description of the uprising was doubtless a key source used for decades by the colonial journalist and historian Roderick Flanagan in his account of events because their works are strikingly similar. According to Flanagan, those in remote areas lived in constant fear of ambush. Stockkeepers' huts were stripped of their supplies. Thousands of head of stock were run off newly established stations. Some white women came under attack, and occasionally children were killed. Formerly friendly Aboriginals sought to drive the encroaching settlers from their land. Tribes from beyond the frontier travelled inland to take up arms against the white intruders, such as was the scale of hostilities that extended across the colony, that it became known as the Rising of 1842 to 44. Settlers at the time had no doubt that they were coming under attack from an organized group of people, yet colonial historians later failed to concede Aborigines were capable of organizing coordinated attacks. While Flanagan recognized these Aboriginal attacks bore the hallmarks of a large-scale military campaign, he and other colonists thought it simply would not have been possible for Aborigines to have organized themselves against the white intruders. Such blinkered views of Aboriginal societies were consistent with social Darwinist thinking, which prevailed at the time. By the 1880s, European observers were cognizant of British philosopher and sociologist Herbert Spencer's notion that societies selectively retained those cultural traits which most suited to their development. Aboriginal people, long since viewed by colonists as primitive children of nature, were considered far less advanced than the European societies which such theories originated from. The Aboriginal uprising coincided with colonial intrusion into the Hunter Valley of North Sydney and the adjacent Liverpool Plains. Anxieties over the magnitude of attacks and the government's failure to curb them excited media interest. Newspaper reports of Aboriginal activity in the Hunter Valley throughout 1842 include accounts of hundreds of Aborigines attacking settlers in their properties adjacent to the McIntyre River. Aborigines driving off an entire herd of cattle from a station, as well as numerous other attacks on stock. According to the Hunter River Gazette, Aboriginal attacks in the Hunter Valley dated back to the earliest days of contact. Calling for a harder line to be taken against local Aborigines, the newspaper warned if the government did not do more to prevent attacks, settlers were likely to take matters into their own hands, leading to the utter extermination of blacks. From correspondence received, the newspaper concluded that the spate of Aboriginal attacks across New South Wales in 1842 was on such a large scale and conducted so systematically that the men's strength in numbers could not be doubted. The Aboriginal attackers had sound knowledge of colonial weaknesses, and the sparse number of settlers of the frontier were thought insufficient in number to cope with the organised Aboriginal onslaught. White settlers were left in no doubt that the local Aborigines were waging a war against them.